Hi everyone. I just finished chapter 3 of Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money, and this one it's called Never Enough. This chapter is really about envy and greed. So now we're really getting into the psychology of money, and he starts off with an amazing story. Kurt Vonnegut is at a party thrown by a hedge fund manager, and he's there with Joseph Heller. Joseph Heller is an author who wrote one of the books that he wrote was Catch 22. Most people have heard of Catch 22. Wildly popular book, made tons of money. And Kurt says to Joseph, the host, the guy who's actually hosting the party, hedge fund manager, he says, this guy made more money in a day than your book has made in its entire lifetime. Joseph Heller's response, this is absolute gold. Joseph Heller's response was, I know, but I've got something he'll never have. And Kurt says to him, what's that? He says, I've got enough. I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Because there are some people, you may know some people like this, I've certainly met people a bit like this, who never ever seem to think they've got enough. All the money in the world, and all they seem to care about is money as well. And actually, it doesn't do them any favors. So, one of the things that the author Morgan Housel says, capitalism is extremely good at creating two things: wealth and envy. Envy comes through social comparison. So he talks about sports people, American football players, talks about baseball players, who a rookie might be making 500 grand a year, which by anybody's measure is rich. But then he knows people who are making 50 million a year or 34 million a year was the exact figure he used. So he feels poor. And then the person who's making 34 million a year, maybe he knows about hedge fund managers. The top 5 in 2018 made at least 770 million a year. And then they know people like Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett knows people like Jeff Bezos. So there's always somebody who can make it feel like you are not earning anything, even though you can probably have, hopefully most people watching this video will have at one point enough to take care of all their needs and a lot of what they want. But if you keep moving the goalposts with what you earn, you earn 20,000 right at the beginning of your career, and you think, man, I need to earn more. You earn 40,000. You think, man, I need to earn more. You get up to about 75,000, which in the UK at least, maybe not in the US, but certainly in the UK, if you're making about 75,000, most of your needs should be taken care of. There's lots of studies to show, and this isn't from this book, this is from elsewhere, lots of studies to show that happiness does increase with wealth up to about 75,000, because at that point, most of your needs are taken care of. All of your needs are taken care of. Beyond that, it doesn't really make you any happier. It just, you've got more money, great, but it doesn't make you any happier. So two examples that Morgan Housel talks about in this chapter, Never Enough. One is Rajat Gupta, who was born in the slums of India, was orphaned, and went on to become amazingly wealthy. So this guy, by his 40s, was the head of McKinsey, which is, an incredible achievement. He joined the UN. He joined philanthropic work with Bill Gates and other people, and then he got onto the board of Goldman Sachs. Now, by any measure, he'd done extremely well. He'd done incredibly well. He was worth tens of millions. All right, but a friend of his apparently once said, not a friend of his, an observer once said, so this is a guy sitting there, and that's sort of like the 100 million table, isn't it? He doesn't want to be on the 100 million table. He wants to be on the billion table. So this is an example of the risk of never being able to say no to a dollar, is what Morgan says, or maybe no to a pound, whatever. So what happens with Gupta? Well, he basically has a fault. He goes to prison because 2008 he's on the board of Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, their future is looking uncertain, and then Warren Buffett agrees to give them 5 billion, invest 5 billion. About 17 minutes later, the guy's Raj who's plugged into the meeting where this is announced with Warren Buffett and the Goldman Sachs directors and everybody else. So Gupta's then got on the phone to a friend of his, a hedge fund manager called Rajaratnam. I think his first name is Raj as well. I've just listened to the chapter again, so the facts are there. The names may be a little off, right? So, and then Rajaratnam's gone and done a deal on Goldman Sachs. And obviously, when it's announced that Warren Buffett is making this investment at Goldman Sachs. The price has soared. The share value of Goldman Sachs has soared. What does Gupta make out of this deal? Easy few million. Through insider trading, basically, Rajat Gupta made himself an extra 17 million, and lots of those calls were recorded. The one with his hedge fund manager wasn't recorded, but it was pretty obvious, the links. All right, so he went to prison, okay, because he could never have enough. The guy is worth more than most people will ever be worth, but he just can't possibly say no to some more money. So how does he get it? He gets it through insider trading. Crime, yeah. Money is worth more than anything else. Warren Buffett said, and once again, this isn't word for word, but it was something along the lines of, he was talking about long-term capital management, which we'll talk about in a second. They risked what they had and what they needed for what they didn't have and what they didn't need, and that's stupidity. That's foolish. So long-term capital management, a hugely successful hedge fund run by some very, very smart people. But once again, greed gets in the way. So these are guys, they're staffed by traders worth tens of millions to 100 million in a few cases. And in the middle of the craziest bear market in the last, 50 years or so, maybe not 50 years, 1998, they take more and more and more and more risk because they want more and more and more money, and they lose it all. Boom. Their money and the investors' money. Bang. Gone. Billions. All right. Once again, they never had enough. So this is about the psychology. Envy makes you want more. Okay, so if you hang around with people who are always chasing money, maybe you're always going to be chasing money and you think the whole worth is tied up in money, so you'll give up anything to try and get more money. And generally, if you give up anything to try and get more money, you'll give up your morals as well. So that's what people like Gupta did. And of course, people in long-term capital management made them to give up their morals, but they certainly gave up their sense, taking more and more and more and more risk because I guess they thought they were invincible and they couldn't lose. But they could. The market can always beat you. Classic old saying, the market can stay irrational for far longer than you can stay solvent. So just because you have a good idea, if you stick to the good idea even when you're getting a beating in the market, eventually the market's going to win. All right. Bernie Madoff, of course he talks about Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff, before he became the biggest Ponzi scam since Charles Ponzi, had a very, very legitimate business, was worth tens of millions. He had a business that was doing so well, it took 9% of the trade away from other exchanges on the New York Stock Exchange. He was a deal maker. He matched buyers with sellers. So he was doing extremely well by all accounts. But once again, it was never enough. It wasn't enough for Madoff, so he had to set up this Ponzi scam, which maybe explains why so many people were duped by him, because there were people sounding alarm bells for years. There was a guy who even said, look, Madoff's returns are impossible because to make these returns, he'd have had to sell more bonds than there are actually bonds available for the last however many years. Nobody listened because before he was a con artist, Madoff was a legit business person doing really, really well. All right. But, it wasn't enough for him, so he went for more and more. The lesson in this chapter, if you keep moving the goalposts, you'll never get there. Decide how much is enough, go for it, and anything above it, great, bonus. But then if you start using the envy thing that capitalism's all so good at, making wealth and creating envy, you'll always find someone who's richer than you. I know someone who I think does remarkably well, and she always tells me, I'm not rich. Hell, you're a lot richer than most people I know, but then she knows people who are much, much richer than her. And so, I'd love to be at her level. I'm sure she'd love to be at their level, but I'd like to believe that when I get to a level like that, I'll think, yeah, this is really great. This is really good. But there you go. The psychology of money. Never enough. That was chapter 3. So, or was it chapter 2? I think it's chapter 3. But the title of this video I'll put the correct chapter in there. I hope you got something useful from that.